I always like to say that our opponents are going to essentially decide whether we drive or drop. It's the ball that they return to us gives us the opportunity. If my grandmother can get that back over the net, apex is right here at the kitchen line and just rolls over somewhere into this called... What is up, pickleball nerds? I'm your coach, Derric Haynie, and today we are going to do a user-submitted video review. What does this mean? One of the users kind of watching this channel asked if I could review one of their games. This happens to be a 4-0 finals match with a ref, so an important game for them, no doubt, and give some feedback on their play. So let's get into it. First up, as always, we're going to start with some of the stats of the players from our favorite tool, Pickleball Vision. Highly recommend taking a look at Pickleball Vision if you haven't used it before. Can really help you understand the math side of your game, which can spot areas for improvement, error rates, give you an idea of how fast your serve is, your returns, things like that. So let's go into each of these players' stats before we get into the game itself. So first off, the player, Brandon, who submitted is player 4 here in the blue shirt, white hat, and his partner is in the red here. So these are the bad guys on the left. You can see here our error rates by player. This is kind of the most important part. You can see their greens and kind of yellows here are about the same, but you can see who player 2 made the most mistakes overall. And then it looks like player 3 and 4 made about the same amount of mistakes. So him and his partner were about even here, just looking at it from a visual standpoint. It says that this team won, but let's find out later because this is known to be wrong. Let's go into the actual individual players. So you can see here, one of their opponents had a 35 mile per hour serve, the average drive 28 miles per hour. You can take a look at their shots. You can see they're not really picking on one side or the other. They do hit some balls out and have some sporadic shots. Looks like some sort of error type situation right here, but we'll force shot lob. I don't know about that. Probably just a mishit or something along those lines. Other than that, what you can see here is this player had a 91% serve rate, which is a little on the low end, but this is probably about right. And an 80% return rate, which is actually quite low. So this would be bad. We want to see this at 90% plus at the 4-0 level. That's about what you would expect. So here we can see that they're a little low. What that means is I might go for a more aggressive serve, as this player is more likely to make mistakes on the return. Their serve depth is not deep enough. Their return depth is pretty solid overall. Actually, by 50-50 isn't so bad. Player 2, taking a look at their shots. You can see their shot accuracy here, 94% in. Fewer out balls, similar no-tell in the grouping, whether they were targeting one player or the other. Their serve, however, is way low on the percentage. 80% is pretty bad for serve, but the return is 100% out of 16 total serves. So this player's got a little bit of a serve issue today. Serve depth was on fire. That's huge. This is a great server. So maybe they're going a little too big on their serves, is what I would say, and they should be focusing a little bit more on the consistency of the serve. But deep serves are really important, so I can't really hate them for going deep and taking a big risk there. Their return depth, however, on the other side, it needs a little bit of work. Too shallow on the returns. Now over to the team we're rooting for, I suppose. Player 3, Brandon's partner. I did not get his name. It might be somewhere on the name of this video. Here it is. Brandon and Scott. So I think this would be Scott. That would make sense if I was taking a good guess. Serving is a little lackluster, so serves need to be deeper by a lot. It should be closer to 50 to 60% in the green. We need deep serves in order to set up a softer return and get to the kitchen line a little bit better. And you can see their serves 100%, returns 95%. So, the first thing is they actually might need to take more risks or really try to definitely serve depth needs to be there. And then, you can see the returns are also a little lackluster. So in both cases, while their percentages are high, I worry that this player is not setting himself up for a good next ball. He maybe is giving the opponent's a little bit too soft of a shot. So let's take a look at our guy Brandon and see how he's doing. 31 mile-per-hour serve, average 27 mile-per-hour drive, 95% shot accuracy, which is all very well and good. Only a couple net balls, couple out balls out of hundreds of shots. They're giving it 80% of the shot quality, which is okay. Serve percent is a little low. We definitely want to see that closer to 90. Return percent also we want to see a lot closer to 90. Looking at the serve depth, much better than your partner, but still needs a little bit more depth to it. Return depth, also better than your partner, but still needs a little bit more depth to your return. Looks like you were dominating mostly the left side of the court in this game. So let's go ahead and dive into the game and get a little bit more feel for the shots. And here I'm going to cut around to interesting points, give you some of my feedback as we see it. We can see our opponents are starting on the left side. Let's go full speed. So you can see that's a pretty soft return already. Let's just imagine if this return, see how he's stepping back and hitting the ball on the rise. So he needs to stand further back and come through the ball so that he's getting to the kitchen faster. And then because of the way that he's taken this return, he's going to make it so easy for his opponents to get to the kitchen line, which is unfortunately going to bring the game to neutral and lose that starting advantage that the returning team has. So very soft return to the middle of the court. My grandmother can get that back over the net, let's say, right? And they're already practically at the kitchen line here. So if they hit any sort of reasonable drop, yeah, we're going to have to concede the kitchen, which is exactly what we do here. I like the form on the dink, moving with the ball, because once the ball's over here, you need to cover this middle. That's perfect. Great. They've hit a cross-court dink. The form here is looking good. A little spread out on the stance, but that's okay. Great. Walk to the side. It's a tough ball to get there. I can't really knock you on the form too much, although it could have been one larger slide step with a slightly wider stance. You'll see the pros will actually stand a little further back where they take a step to the side here. Let me see if I can get into frame. They step out to the side and hit the ball like this, but you had to take 2 steps and ended up kind of crouched. So it's a little bit better if you can take a large side step, but perhaps there you needed the double step in order to get to the right spot. So we want to make sure that our partner understands what our job is here at the net. And as a left side player, he's standing in the wrong spot. Generally, you should be crowding the middle. And a good thing to do maybe right now would be to crowd this right side player. He's hitting the ball this way towards him at his feet here. And then he should be kind of guarding the line, almost 2-3 feet over. And then you should be over here. Why is that important? Because of this next shot where you have the opportunity to hit a good ball, but your partner's actually in your way. So that you got a little chicken wing there, which does happen time to time. So he's going to look for a reset. Taking from his partner, notice how he's taking that ball, which I really wouldn't have recommended that, but he's there. You see the opportunity right here. What you should do is take 2 fast steps to the right, push your partner out of the way, and attack. And he should know this and be ready to give you the space to attack. Good partners understand that your forehand is going to take precedent, and their job is to support you in making an aggressive shot here. Because he's in the way, you weren't able to move to the ball, and look, he hits a low dink, so he's taking the ball further down than you. And obviously he's not going to be able to put a lot of power on it. I think his location is going wide, which is the right play, but you can see that he was not able to reach to the ball above the net. So his form is actually a little bit off on that backhand. Ideally, he would be holding his paddle out in front and flicking the ball forward. But because he's back here like this, he was kind of dinking off of the middle of the body, and that form is what cost him the pop-up and probably the rest of this point. Let's keep going. That was actually amazing. Great recovery. Let's just go back. Watch it one more time. That's a solid chicken wing. Great reset. And great reset by him there. Your attack was spot on. And you never let them get to the kitchen line. One more time. Good block by him. And your attack and letting that ball go is absolutely huge. Very, very hard to do. All right, let's continue. It's a pretty moderate serve. Working into the kitchen, which is great. That is an unwarranted attack. So sometimes this happens to everyone. You get caught a little bit off guard. You're not sure whether to dink, or maybe you thought about a speed up in there. You got to make sure that you're not doing this too often, and you really just want to calm down and hit a simple dink. You actually have a great opportunity to dink that one from here, cross court into this corner. There's a nice spot here, pushes him back. Then your next shot goes to his inside foot, and you start working him side to side until he pops it up. So unfortunately, while you did have the time to react appropriately to that, it might have just been a little bit of a mental oopsie as the ball kind of caught you right in between your body and you didn't have time to move left, right, or take a step back for it. But you want to be ready for that. One of the best ways to be ready for that is something I learned in a class with Johnson Cola, one of my favorite pickleballers, great YouTube videos as well. He says, think about your dinking as a progression. So the first goal is to take the dink out of the air. The second goal is to step back and hit it at the apex on the fly, meaning after it's bounced and come up. And the third and worst option is to half volley the dink, because that's going to lead to the most amount of errors and is the most and completely defensive shot. You cannot do much with a half volley. You're really just hoping to get it back over and get a better opportunity at the ball on the next shot. So let's just take a look at how this dink turns into what it is. So good positioning, looking at your opponent, foot is slightly back, which I would recommend. You're perfectly ready. You're in the ready position. You break it down. You should now see the ball coming, possibly even lean forward slightly and just dink and just get that paddle ready for a very easy pressurized dink, pushing it into the corner. So I wouldn't, at this moment, you might be thinking speed up, speed up, speed up. And that's probably what caused this error here. But this is why you have to be ready for changing that attitude as the ball drops. Yeah. And so you're trying to do a low attack as if the ball is coming across your body. You would need the ball to be here, right about here at your shoulder level. And you'd want to hit it right about there. And if you take a look at this ball, you hit it way lower here, way below the net, and where there's nothing we can do to save that. And you can tell with your shot immediately because you serve him up a nice counterable ball. It's an awkward spot for him, so you get a little lucky, but that's what's going to happen every single time. And you probably know that from that point. We just want to try and eliminate situations like that by being maybe even a little defensive by nature. Take your time and get the right speed up opportunity. We've all been there with that missed dink. So it's hard because sometimes you're scooping, but you want to push, and that's where that error comes from there. Return. So again, a very soft return. And that sets them up for a low attack and finishes the point. So your partner's got to work on their return. They have to really, really care about that return. Let's take a look. Nice. Great return. Great depth. Great power. Go back here just 1 second. You're at the net. You're ready. Ball's coming a little fast. You're sliding for it. Ideally, you're able to make this with a full arm. I can't knock you on this. I think it's moving too fast to have gotten in a perfect position there and make it perfectly counterable. It's not bad based on the movement required to get the ball, to keep it in that back of the court and give him a nice tough ball. But if you can slide a little bit faster, you could have possibly really slapped that ball and made this fifth shot even harder. As is, they hit a perfect 5th reset. This is a good down the line choice by him. I don't hate it. Cross court would also be fine. You got the pop up. This is pretty good form. You're a little overextended, it looks like. Let's watch that back just 1 second. So the ball's going to come to you, which means you shouldn't have to jump forward for this. You should actually be able to stay pretty strong. Maybe it's just where I'm pausing it kind of looks like it. You know, yeah, I mean, you're pushing up. So maybe the form is fine. It's just the way that I paused it. But yeah, you should be able to, you know, push up through the ball without having to, you know, flamingo it or get too far out there. Great slide. Good form overall on this second. So that's the perfect form. This here, you can see how you're breaking your elbow and now creating 1, 2, 3 hinges. Count them. 3 hinges on the ball in order to hit it. It's going to be a little bit harder than if you have a flat arm and use your wrist power primarily to slap it. There's definitely is a little bit of shoulder and elbow still, but a little bit more wrist and definitely less elbow in this case. And you can see it looks painful actually at this freeze frame here. And you hit the ball a little flat as well, but overall it's a pretty solid hit. That's a pretty minor area for improvement from a form standpoint. Couple mistakes there. So I always like to say that our opponents are going to essentially decide whether we drive or drop. It's the ball that they return to us gives us the opportunity. This ball barely comes over the net, so it's a low ball, which we kind of know by the nature of that. And with some backspin, it's going to probably drop low. Now you're probably thinking it's a sitter, which means I can speed it up. Problem is that a sitter right about, let's just see where we hit. Right here in the back percentage of the net at about knee height, right? So right about at knee height, this is drivable, and he's a little bit further back, but it's not a requisite to drive, and it's actually a really easy drop because it's pretty soft and low. So generally, looking at a ball of this depth, pace, and height, I would prefer a drop. I can't knock you really for driving if you see the player back or you think they're weak versus drives or something like that. But a drop is just so much safer here, and you'll find it converts quite a lot more as long as you're comfortable with your drops. Which, of course, if you're not, that's something to work on. That's just a little bit of a misjudgment. We've all been there. Can't fault you for it. He was coming in a little high, but it was going so high to low. That's a great drop and good footwork. Yeah. He got it back over. Okay, nice. Let's just watch their attack. So his paddle's sitting middle. He's standing middle. It's an okay position for him. He's a little turned to the inside. The speed up was predictable, so I would have had a slightly different stance. I would have possibly jumped slightly back off of the line, had my paddle actually completely at my side here, ready to go left or right. Sitting left is what causes you'd have to fly with that reset, but he got a good reset on there. Okay. Mild serve. Again, a low drive, so it's becoming a theme. Oh, you got so lucky there. It was a tough reset. The form on it looked good, but obviously you were not able to keep it down. By the time you hit this ball, it's going to be well below your knee, and you're 2/3 of the way into the court. If you drop this right here in the corner, this wide open corner with a decent pace, goes right in there. Starts 30, 60, not 90. The 90 is back here. So at the 30 or 60 level, you roll it over there. This guy has to take 1, 2 steps to the right, probably 1 step back, and we'll be getting this ball almost falling over. So this is your sweet spot here, and it's actually a triangular zone that starts about here and goes out. So this, is about where you want to be aiming. It's a pretty large area. It's not the largest ever, but at the 4-0 level and to get to 5-0, I highly recommend you and every other player watching this really work on that zone, especially when you've got a player touching the middle line here. And so as played, driving middle, or right, this guy's backhand. I mean, and it probably was an out ball too, by the way. Lucky he hit it. I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. It doesn't convert nearly as well. Look, your partner's actually in trouble here. Whereas if you had that drop, you would just be in. You would just be in the kitchen. He's back, but you're in scramble position. Luckily, he hit it low. He's giving a look. He's looking this way and hitting that way. How clever of you, bro. Great slide. This is all you can do. Hustle back up. Yeah, perfect rotation to turn for that. Good attack by your opponents. Their form looked solid. They just missed it into the net. Lucky us. It's going to happen. That's why we play one more ball. All right, let's watch that one over. So you're giving a lot of backspin on your returns here. You can see this one in particular. Well, it's not a terrible return. It's a little too high. The backspin actually causes it to go up 3 more feet in the air. Thankfully, your depth is saving you here. Actually looks like it lands out. I'm pretty sure that landed out of bounds. But we play it, I guess. He hits a reasonable drive. And you can see, by the way, your drives have been really flat. This is a nice angled, what I'd still call a drive. I guess maybe it qualifies as a drive. It's kind of a combo. And it causes this error. He's lined up for the attack. You're just in trouble here. Sometimes you can take that step back to give yourself a little bit extra time. Sometimes you just gotta hope for the best. He hits a good attack. And yeah, you weren't able to get a hold of it. No big deal. There's not too much to be said there. You're gonna have to guess, and you're gonna have to give it a try. But again, just to emphasize on that point, it's your backspin return that set up the shot that caused you to create an error. So if you instead hit a flat return that's only 2 or 3 feet over the net, you're in a much better spot, and that third shot doesn't happen the same way, and this point doesn't spiral. So your partner didn't do you justice there. First he crowded the middle, then he wanted you to take that ball. There needs to be a little bit of partner communication, understanding on what's going to happen there. He shouldn't be crowding the middle to a middle ball like that. He needs to give you majority of the space and stay a little bit more to the right of his square. You can see, just go back 5 seconds. He actually runs through the ball onto your side of the court and then lines up. So like he's standing in your sweet spot. He's actually intruding on what I would call my favorite spot of the court. Your forehand is supposed to take this ball, and this ball. But if your partner runs over there and crowds that middle, of course you're going to think he's going to hit that. So this is, we got to just talk to your partner a little bit. You can show him this video. Don't mean to be too harsh about it, but you've got to change the mentality of why you're standing where you're standing. Crowding the middle is important in a couple of different scenarios that we could talk about. when dinking at the net and getting into situations where there could be counterattacks, attacking and counterattacks, because the court actually does shrink and constrict in men's doubles, and you do need to both kind of stay in the middle when the ball's in the middle. But that's not what's going on here. You are the aggressors. You are at the net, and they are playing the defense, and we need to get our power forehand in play. We need to get that forehand player to take all those middle balls. And that means you've got to give them 2 or 3 extra feet because that's their job. They should have more of that. When the opposing team is back, the person on the left should be able to have almost 3/4 of the court, if not at least 2/3 of the court. But because your partner's positioning, it's getting dicey. And I've seen this many times before. It makes things go kind of like this. And whose fault is it? It's hard to understand. Well, when you watch the tape back, you start to see it. All right, let's pause for 1 second. I wanted to take a look at some of my own gameplay in comparison to this and look at some 4-5 and 5-0 games where either me or my opposing team was doing a really good job at playing that job at the net, having that forehand in the middle and keeping the pressure on, and putting the other team back. So largely here we're looking at returning team, keeping pressure on the serving team and keeping them back. Even in some cases they might convert, but you can see how hard you're pushing to prevent that serving team from coming up to the net into a neutral position. Let's look at some footage. Here it's me returning. Nice deep return. We've got a decent drop. It's a decent drop, slightly above the net. And you can see, while my partner is actually in the middle, we know for certain this is my ball, and I'll be taking, this is right here in the middle, I think, right? This is about right on the line, and we're quite certain that, yeah, we're right above the 50-50 mark. And this is my ball and my forehand, and so it's my job to keep them back. I go towards his backhand. And as deep as I can really get it. So aiming for that back corner without risking an out ball, right? So about 2 feet, 3 feet in on both sides. Probably one of the safest play you could do. We could, of course, even apply a little bit more pressure. But you can see he's still behind the baseline after my 4th shot. So I'm able to keep him back here. Another ball comes right to the middle. We know for sure this is, again, my forehand. And now I'm going to punish, because it is actually slightly higher, I'm actually going to punish the player who's a little bit closer, targeting probably their backhand. Let's take a look. Yep. So he's on his back foot, targeting his backhand. He has to hit a volley here. Let's just look at it real time. So 1, 2. Switching targets to his backhand because he's a little closer. And that causes the error. So dominating the middle and applying pressure to both players' backhands. First, keeping the original 3rd shotter back, because obviously after you hit the 3rd shot, your partner's able to come up, but you're kind of you're the one playing a little bit further back. And if that drop is anywhere in the reasonable zone, then I would prefer to go to the 3rd shot person, because the other person's going to be a little bit more forward and they could possibly counterattack, because my ball is likely to be a pop-up going kind of dead on that first person. So obviously going back to the 3rd shot player makes more sense. On the 5th shot, because it's higher, so it's higher than the net, so I can add more pace and put a downward trajectory on the ball, I prefer to target the player who's closer, because we're limiting the amount of time they have to scramble and respond. And because they are in the court, I can make them volley the next ball, which is more likely to cause an error or a pop-up, which is what we got there. Let's take a look at another point where our opponents do the same thing to us. They had a great medium-sized return, medium depth. And now you can see on the 3rd, he's taking this 4th shot on the fly, but keeping as much pressure as possible, aiming right at my partner Amit's feet. Amit's able to take a half volley, but it's going to be a tough one because there's a bit of pace on the ball. He hits, our opponent hits a low ball. So but it's clearly his forehand in the middle here, dominating. And even though the ball is low, neither of us can come in and poach this. So he's able to he has a bit of space to work with to put some pressure on us and put a reasonably powerful shot from a low position to keep me back. That lands at my feet. I've got to stretch to the right to get this. It's not an easy reset by any means, but it is a doable reset here. You can see I went forward one step, hoping that my reset was a little bit better than it was. Probably should have took a step back. As you can see, he's hit the ball from above the net, which means I did not do my job with easy reset. The next one comes a little bit faster. Now it's really high, and I know to step back, and he hits a really good attack. Another decent reset, but you can see there, he actually did not get the depth on the next ball needed. So he should have tried to keep that ball aimed at our feet, trying to keep it on this line or further back. And you can see, let's just go, he lands in the kitchen, basically. So he missed an opportunity to keep us back there. And then that one is also too high, and we lose the point. So they were able to get us to spiral with a great net play there. Let's go to the next one. One more time, partner admit. It's a really deep return. And here is where you could say we make a mistake. So he's supposed to, on this third, or on his fourth shot, keep his opponent back. But look at how good the shot is. So the player taking the third knows they've hit a great third and wants to come in and prevent the pressure from a half volley of pushing the other team back. So he's read his own ball and is coming in here, and he does that. Amit overextends, and he's able to create an attacking position by coming in and hitting a attacking fifth because he's moved forward, and we were a little greedy in trying to keep the opposing team back. Now he's now Amit has to change targets because he is up at the kitchen line. The ball is a little, and Amit cannot really put pressure on him with the next ball. So he changes targets to the player who is back. Now with the ball high, he really has options open. And you can see he knows he's in trouble because he's most likely to get targeted since he's the close player and the ball is well above the net. Let's watch that back in real time. Deep return. Mistake on the fourth. Then targeting, switching targets, get the pop-up. All right, let's look at another one here. Quick point, but you can see here, I think Mike's fourth sets this whole point up. But even though it's kind of a weak shot, which we did see in your footage as well, he's aiming for, this is Steve here on this side, he's aiming for Steve's feet. So he wants the ball to land about there in the back side of the court. It's a little hard to see from this angle, but he wants it to land at Steve's feet, which is going to be a hard reset for Steve. If he drops the ball lower into the kitchen, if it bounces here or here, it's going to be a relatively easy half volley reset. But by putting the pressure on, even without strong pace, but just aiming deeper, he's able to keep Steve back. Steve hits a pop-up, which was the entire goal of that shot. He's able to hit an attack. It was a little bit of a reach, so he doesn't get the depth on that shot, but obviously that shot we would want to be more at people's feet in the backcourt. This is Ivano here. Ivano hits a decent reset, but still too high. You can see I'm able to take the ball from well over the net there and apply additional pressure, and that gets the error. Here we see Pablo returning. I hit a reasonable third, and you can see here I've made it to the kitchen line. So what's he thinking? He's thinking, I want to keep these guys off the kitchen line. He's not up yet. His backhand is actually, since the ball has dropped, over here, the ball's basically dropped so that he can go pretty straightforward down the line towards Riz's backhand. You can see, this is Riz here. You can see Riz is slightly out of position given the ball has moved here. So Riz probably should take a step to the left as he sees this ball drop into the corner. And he should probably be mounting up right now for the fourth shot because it's likely to go either down this line or he's going to send it cross court here. So I need to mount up here at a slight angle and get ready for a tough cross court ball. This is what we're doing here. Pablo is seeing that I've rushed the kitchen line because of the confidence I have on my drop, and he knows that that in order to keep us from converting to neutral, he needs to push Riz back. So he goes down the line. Riz has to take an extended shot here gets a little bit of a pop-up, just enough that he's able to hit a soft attack. So this is the game of keeping him back for one more shot. If Riz can convert this, we'll get to neutral. If it goes a little too high, then it can start to spiral. It goes a little too high on the pop-up, and you can see Pablo aimed for Riz's body, but not at full speed because it was slightly below the net, right? So Riz has to block. If he tries to counter this, he's just basically going to be fighting two people at the net with fast hands when he's not at the net, not in a great position. So this, and his ball is below the net here. So he really does have to block. You can see he's blocking at his thigh height, but there's really no opportunity for a counterattack there. It could be counterable, but it would be a rough situation to counter. And so he gets the pop-up. This is Josh here. He had to reach a little bit, so he wasn't able to put perfect power on it, but still a lot of power. Aims it towards my feet. I hit it on the half volley too high, and now Josh gets full power on the shot, and I can't. Watch another one. Here, great return by Josh. I'm too high. But Josh isn't able to get the power required, but he's able to put the placement in a spot where it might set him up for the next shot. So they're still doing a good job keeping me back.
Yeah, I do a little bit.
That's another too high. That one's low enough, and you can see how it starts to convert as we are able to get one of those resets, and that's what you're going to see. It's a lot of staying back until one of your balls converts, and then you're able to get into neutral. There's another one. I make a reasonable return with pace. It goes to my backhand, and it's a relatively weak shot by me, and we saw your partner kind of hit one of these as well, but my placement is still deep enough, and that's what I want to emphasize. It's the depth when two players are here. So we don't have, this person's not here trying to poach. They're not going to try and push to the right and slide and take their partner's ball. So both players are back in the back. That's about 1/3 right of the court. We don't have to have power if the ball is below the net, but we want to push them back. We want it to land at their feet without being like a pure pop-up that they can take 2 steps forward and just smash it. Right? So let's watch it over one more time. So it's kind of a weak shot by me, but it still is to his backhand and with a little bit of depth. Now his partners come forward. It's a high bouncing ball, and I can take advantage of it with without overextending, just aiming slightly above the net at his feet. And you can see he's in a tough spot. The ball's maybe going out, but probably landing near the back line. And he's got to take a volley out of the air. If he tries to attack from there, then we're going to be able to counter pretty strongly. And we both have fast enough hands that we're probably at an advantageous position and can push the ball down towards his feet in the next ball, which is likely to get a pop-up, and then we seal the deal in the final shot. So that one right there, I think, is where that speed up on the fly keeps our opponent back. And you can see also positioning, even though my partner is hugging the middle here, we know that this ball right here is mine. So you can see he's actually stepping away, knowing that it's my job to take this middle ball. And so if he were to step in and take this ball, that would just convert the opposing team to neutral. So Chris, my partner there, who is very good and aggressive at the net himself, knows very well that this is my forehand and that I have the opportunity to speed up here. If he takes the ball, then we are sacrificing quite a lot on our side and basically giving them the net for free. All right, let's get back into it. I just wanted to point out some rallies from other games to compare and have you thinking about what net play should be about when you're the returning team. So again, with a slice return, and obviously that one was out. It just happens. And I like that you're going for depth and a bit of pace, but I only do slice returns for fun or if I notice my opponents are really struggling to hit a third off of a slice return, then I'll mix it in. But I actually find that a flat or even slightly sideways return, meaning you can put just a tad bit of side spin on the ball as you're returning it, is much better than a backspin oriented return, because 4-0 and 4-5 and 5-0 players are going to take your backspin, convert it into their topspin, and give you a really hard third shot. Also, it's just not going to be as consistent, I find, or as fast. So he prefers to win that way. Good setup by him. Did that really land in? Yeah, that was perfect corner. I don't blame you for letting that go. It looked like a bad speed up by him. He just happened to hit the corner. No, that was out, so we played an out ball. It's your partner's job to call that. Let's make sure. That's tough. Maybe that is in the game. This thing's calling it out. It's not perfect. And then let's just take a look at the return again. Sorry. So again, a slice return. Look, it sets up a beautiful drive by your partner. This drive is you're handing it out to him. So we just really want to put a bit more pace on that return. When the ball slices, and it kind of slows down as it hits the ground and pops up. So by removing the slice, I think you'll improve how you have to deal with third shots quite a bit. Great conversion. Ah, that's a little greedy. Look at this third. It's funny that you take this as a drop, which I think it's fine, but it's a higher ball than the others. So if you'd moved a little bit faster to it, could have been a drive. I think it's much better to drop, because if you drive, they can just kind of drop into this corner. So I would play it as a drop always. Perfect location. You see that he has to hit the ball there. You're moving your feet, kind of hustling forward, but you should be a little bit broken down here. And your opponent should always go for an angled dink. So you can read into that a little bit more and hustle out a little bit wide. Sometimes I would take a shortcut this direction with this ball, because my partner is going to cover anything that's like from this angle. If it's going over here, it's going to go high, and they should be able to poach, right? So they should just be able to take a nice backhand poach, which means they should aim for the corner most of the time. Especially, they're projecting their paddle direction. So we can assume it's never going this way at this level. Sometimes people get sneaky, but pretty much it's projected at this point. So you're coming forward to handle that, which I like, but we should technically be in a little bit more of a breakdown situation. It's good. Now you break it down right after he hits, which is solid. It takes this extra step. You see it. You're judging the ball pretty well. But what you haven't done, so the ball has bounced. You've just arrived in the kitchen. Your partner has just arrived in the kitchen in their ready spot. You have a perfect opportunity to hit a cross-court dink. This is exactly what I would be thinking here. Leg positioning, paddle positioning. You can roll that ball right over into this corner. It comes down even a little tighter, kind of comes down like that over there, and aim for this section of the court right here. That is exactly what I would be thinking in this shot, and that's what I think is the correct play. A cross-court dink puts the most pressure on them, forces him to go wide. As you hit it, I've already seen you do this, you take one step to the middle, and hopefully we see your partner take one step to the line, because once that goes over into the corner, they should be standing here with their paddle on their right hip, which would be right at this point here, so they can cover this zone, and then you can cover this zone here. So that's what I'd like to see happen in this shot, and I think it would be very advanced. Put a lot of pressure on him to get that ball back over the net, and it would puts you in a very strong spot going from, defensive to neutral to aggressive. But instead you went for some sort of wonky speed up. So we got to get that out of the system. You got to remove things like ego, unnecessary aggression. These things are going to get in your way in pickleball, cause you to make errors like this. So that, and we want to make cheeky plays every once in a while, but tried and true is what wins you the game. And tried and true that's a red ball. Red meaning it's far below the net. You're just getting to you're not in a solid position. You're not entrenched in your position, I would say. And you have the opportunity to just make a full conversion to neutral, possibly an aggressive dink that puts you in an advantageous position. And that low attack has a 25% chance of hitting the net. I'd say a 50% chance of just a counterattack that really messes you up. And then maybe a 10 to 20% chance of it going your direction. So it's really, from a math standpoint, I would give you a pretty low percentage of turning that into a winning play. It's not going to happen very often for you. You're risking a whole bunch of things. But the cross-court dink, you can hit that 80, 90, 95% of the time, and it's going to put way more pressure on your opponent, cause a pop-up 30% of the time. It's going to get you a neutral ball back, 30, 50% of the time. And your opponent's probably going to have very low chance of hitting a winner, assuming you execute on the shift to the right appropriately. Yeah, he's having a hard time with that forehand dink. So, it sounds weird, but you could call a timeout. This happens to me sometimes. I get a little nervous and I can't hit that right side dink. You could do two things. You could stack the other direction just to get that kind of away from him so he doesn't have to do that. But you could call a timeout on the spot and just say, hey, I'm going to stand, I'm going to stand. All right, timeout. Okay, I'm going to stand here. You're going to stand here. We're going to hit the ball for the 60 seconds of our timeout. Just focus on you going middle and you going cross court with the forehand. Let's get that sorted out right now, because it's probably more of a quirk in his game, that's something that will, with 30 hits really fast, he could just get that out of the system and be done with it. So that's something that I've noticed in my own game. It's happened to me on the serve. I have a very good 95% serve plus, but sometimes I just go into a tournament or a game, something happens and my brain just can't figure out how to serve. My paddle kind of shifts left or right. I don't know exactly what it is. And the same thing happens with my forehand dink. And sometimes I just need to take a pause, take a deep breath, and just practice it a few times, and then it just gets right out of your system. I don't know if that's the case here, but that's something I'd recommend testing out if you see a little mistake like this. You've got timeouts. You can use them for things like this. It's okay if you show them a little bit, because by the time you fix it, there won't be anything. Lucky point. There won't be anything. There won't be anything left to attack. You'll be good. Yeah, he's thinking about it. You can see. Good topspin return, and you can see it creates a little. So why is this error happening? I don't know. It looks like you just pushed it a little too wide. Form is okay. Let's put it at 50%. Just. You just pushed it a little too wide. I can't really knock you on form. Just a little too greedy. That just comes down to practice and drilling. You got lazy. So that's your ball. You need to be a little bit more ready for that. And you just kind of weren't paying attention. Which happens to me all the time. Great attack. Great finish. One more time. Great dink. Got the pop-up attack. Something I'd say with this attack. It's okay to go to him. My preferred spot, so you're clearly above the net. It's right out in front of your body. You should be pushing that down the middle, generally speaking. So it should go, it's going to hit it right about here. It's kind of going over the net right in this zone right in between them, here to here. I think you might actually hit it right here, and he digs it. Let's hit play. So just, you're a little far to his body, which I would, I would recommend just middle solves the riddle. Trying to go a little bit lower in between them. But we all do this. This happens to me, all that stuff. You could also consider attacking straight in front of you. The reason to attack straight in front of you is because it's a shorter distance, so they have less time to react. But I don't hate cross court here, but that's not the first location. And you want to have that in your head. Where am I going to go if this ball comes to me? And also, could you have taken that as a slide forehand, and would that have done you a little bit better? Let's go back just a smidge here. So your partner needed to push that ball back, and unfortunately, or you should take that ball actually, and be hitting a pretty nice forehand slap down the middle that basically lands in the back 80% of the court and keeps them back. Here it's going to be easy conversion to neutral, which is unfortunate because you're losing your advantage. This is the perfect cross-court dink, reasonable form. Nice low angle. He hits a great dink, reasonable form. Okay, it's fine to take the attack. Attack. Now, the problem is that you're not ready for the second ball. So you perhaps needed to let that ball come into you more so that you weren't leaning so far forward to hit it and off balance on the next ball. This is something I'm still working on myself, but I know it when it happens to me, because you can feel it and you go, oh crap, I've overextended and now I have to, you can see there again, that second shot was a little bit of a struggle, it felt like. And if we watch it in regular speed, I think you'll see you got caught off guard. So it's always coming back. Yeah. And it could have been a forehand as well, the second one, which you might be preferring your backhand here. I can't tell for sure yet, but I would highly recommend a slapping forehand shot there. You can generate a lot of power with it. So both sides here are really able to convert to neutral pretty frequently, and so just from kind of a feel of it, without even just by the number of points converting to kitchen play at men's doubles, and based on the relative skill that I can kind of sense here, I would say you guys need to work on keeping your opponents back more as the returning team. You really, really need to be hitting fast balls that put a lot of pressure on them. They're not really doing a lot of poaching, so it shouldn't be even off the bounce. You should be able to hit pretty solid pace that prevents them from just making these what seem to be relatively easy, uncontested conversions. I know at my level, you can get that. As the level goes up, sometimes the getting through that transition zone actually gets harder and harder. Nice deep serve. Good form. Perfect drop. Oh, so clean. Let's just take a look at how you handled. So good form. Just very, very good form. Perfect position. Your partner's coming in. Your partner actually, if I was getting a little picky, once they see this ball, so it's the job, but this is for both partners. His job is to put pressure on them, constricting the court so that when you hit a great drop, you're able to convert into the kitchen. Your drop just happens, in this case, to be so good, it's going to convert anyways. But he should be 2 steps up, turn slightly towards you, and getting ready to put pressure on if your shot is a good shot. You step wide. He sees what is perceived as a good shot. He rushes forward. Just it's a little risky, but I guess he's confident in the shot. You've also rushed forward because it's a good ball. You can just see based on the angle, you're coming into ready position right as he hits the ball. He's going for a speed up at your body, which is, You know, this is usually a shot designed to keep you back, but because you've rushed the net together, it's going to be basically an attack off the bounce, which I don't hate by them. But then here, perfect form. And you can see how in a lot of your other backhand attacks, you were falling forward a little bit more into the kitchen. And here you hit the ball right here, and you just made a little countering motion using his force mostly, and it's just over. It's great placement, low. So that's what I think that other attack should have been when you had that nice high pop up in the middle. Should have looked a little bit more like that. Let the ball come in just a little bit further and then angle it down a little bit better. This point has a good sequence. I see you stacking here. So you spot the mistake by your opponent here. So, all right, we just got to talk about this fourth shot here. Look, I mean, this is your ball. You've got, like, you're stacking for a reason, I presume. But if he's just going to take these balls and look at what's going on with it. It's just a soft dink to the middle. It's an invitation into the kitchen. If that was my forehand, I would flick that hard enough I'd flick it right into this corner, and he'd have to take a step back on his next shot instead of coming forward to it. And obviously, you know, we can talk to your partner and talk about ways for him to put more pressure on in situations like these. But the best way to do that is for you to take this as a forehand shot. Just take that one step to the right. You've got enough time to move over there and get that ball, and then you're able to push him back. Here, he's forced into a defensive shot, but there are ways to put a little more pace on this ball because this guy's not really poaching, and this guy's back. So I would be trying, even if I'm taking out of the air, I would still try to. I actually use two hands here. I'd try to push it into the back corner. I would really, because I don't want to open it up to this player. So if I put it here. Or here, obviously it has to be short if I'm going across this way, just based on the angle and all that stuff. And so I can't push to this corner deep because it'll just be a nice high forehand. And he can just step forward and attack, right? So my best option all here is going to be into this corner. And I would just be looking to go down this side of the court with this ball. I'd probably aim for about there, push that back and cause him to have to take a step to the side to get the ball. As played, your partner hits it into the middle or maybe a little bit at his feet, which just requires him to stop briefly and tap it back in for a relatively easy conversion. Well, it was a little too high, which is good. So he does get a little bit of an error there, and he's able to make the attack, which is good. This is a reasonable attack. I do think middle is still a little bit better, but we don't always hit where we're aiming. This is your opportunity to shine. A lot of pressure. You're aiming for feet. When you're in this spot, you're aiming for feet. They're stuck. You're aiming for their feet. So that was a little too short. So we want to really try to put pressure right at their toes because it's going to be the hardest ball to get. And when they get it, it's going to be a pop-up so much of the time. So a little short on that. It happens all the time. Not a problem. Just be thinking feet. He hits a nice reset. And you can see how much, because you hit the ball so shallow, it actually lost a lot of power getting to him. So they had enough time to make a reset there. That is a good cross-court dink. Because he's out of position, he rushes to the ball. And he goes into Hail Mary mode, which pushes it down the line. Your partner's already read it and is sliding over. He got a little bit off guard, but he's able to put a decent amount of pace on it, which is great. And then he was out of position, hitting a low speed up, which is just not recommended. No, not something you should be doing. But again, he caught off guard. Unlucky for him on the tape, I suppose. Great placement cross corner for him. It's just a little high, I guess, but I don't. Okay, it is a little high. So he just got a little excited off the tape, left it a little high, which ultimately caused the error. So you're not perfectly reset. Paddle's pretty far out in front. So you're all the way out. Right? So you're falling forward. If you can keep it a little bit more short and compact, you'll be ready for the next one. That one could be a forehand, but you're stuck holding your paddle backhand, which is creating a larger zone for you. So yeah, at the highest levels of play these days, people are saying put the paddle neutral on your right hip. So you can go forward and backhand as quickly as you need to. It's great. And then also you keep, for practice, you can put pickleball under each arm and try to attack and counterattack without dropping the ball. Not saying you have to play points like that, but it helps you compact your shots so that you're hitting the ball fast enough to get ready for the next one. It's going to be really important because in pickleball, as you progress in the levels, but again, the ball comes back. Just to emphasize on that point, it's your backspin return that set up the shot that caused you to create. All right, we watched the first game of your match, and I think there were a few takeaways over the net. The form of your backhand, a much better spot, and that third shot doesn't happen. You're ready for the counterattack to come back to you. Some selection on where you're going to put your shots. And then maybe even a little bit more criticism on your partner and getting them to give you a little bit more space in the middle. And you must take that permission to hit fourths and sixth shots down the middle. So a couple of drills that I would recommend working on is that the most common drill is just, your partner's back at the baseline, you're at the net, they're trying to come forward. You're playing half a court. You can make it into a game if you want, but they're trying to come forward. You're trying to keep them back. And then just have them at the have them at the baseline, have them 2 feet inside the baseline, have them 4 feet inside the baseline, and just stuck at those spots for like 30, 50, 100 balls, and just see how hard can you snap it back? How well can you take a step back and put pressure on them, right? Things like that. And then after doing each of those zones for 5, 10 minutes, 30, 50 balls, you then turn it into a game where they are allowed to progress forward. And of course, your partner can practice the same thing. You can take turns being at the net. And the game is essentially, they get a point if they get to neutral, and then you play the point out, and whoever gets the point from that, regardless, right? So so the person approaching the net, the person at the disadvantage, has the opportunity to score 2 points for every rally. I find that game to be really important for keeping opponents back, which I didn't feel like you guys did very well in this game. The next drill is just going to be fast hands. And I noticed in your warm-up, you didn't do fast hands. Highly recommend short, compact shots, just in agreeing with your partner at about 50% pace, going back and forth straight at each other's body, to the left and the right, just a little bit, forehand, backhand. And really, well, you're going to find the two things that become beneficial in doing this for like 100 back and forth rallies is that you're keeping your hand swings really short, and you're letting the ball come into you. When you give yourself that permission, the nerves can get the better of you when you're in a tournament or a game, and you start going out for the ball. You start like reaching as far forward as you can. You let the ball come to you, come into your zone and your sweet spot, and then apply the power. And you might say, Derric, the ball would be too low by the time it reaches there. Then guess what? Hit a different shot. Consider that outside of your zone, right? So we overextending is worse than having to change the power or nature of your shot. If it has to turn into a dink because it's not quite in your zone, then make a nice aggressive, dink off of a little bit of a high ball. You don't have to kill every ball, especially at 4-0. You're allowed to change how the opportunity evolves, let's say. You don't have to make an attack just because it's high, but if it starts high and starts to drop, that's when you have to change your decision to prevent yourself from overextending. Overextension hits it into the net. Overextension hits the ball out. Overextension means that when the ball comes back, you're not ready for it, right? So it's a little bit better to just play a little bit more of a patient game in situations like that. Other than that, I also think just removing the slice from your return in most situations. I know you're probably yelling at me, no, Derric, I'm not going to do that. I recommend for most people in doubles, practice that return. Just have serve return and do that 100 times with a partner. Practice that return coming through the ball with a flatter backhand return, and I promise you, you're going to see easier thirds from your opponents. It's going to be harder for them to hit a good ball. In the points that we witnessed, when you didn't put backspin on the ball, you actually got a much easier third. Watch it back, you'll see. Other than that, I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope that this was educational for those at home and the players in the game. As always, if you have a video you'd like me to review, I am doing these weekly for free. You just have to send me an email. I am Derric, D-E-R-R-I-C, at pbnerds.com. And if you are lucky enough, I will be reviewing your video in our next session. I will see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.